So sorry we're a little bit late. We got, I don't know, sidetracked brainstorming about all these things. So thanks for coming to our Tuesday, episode 6,
Yes.
Change School TV. So we're totally late today, but that's all right because our pre-party usually would have started.
Yeah.
So we can skip the pre-party. So today's episode is focused on hacking happiness, and it's about making values-based choices.
Yep.
So, at the Change School, we're all about values and about taking action, obviously. But values are instilled in us, and oftentimes we don't, really uncover them because we're not taught to really think about them in school or even at work. It's not something that is commonplace to, be top of mind. But there's a lot more discussion around it, and, some of you may have read some of our stuff or heard us talk about, this values revolution, and I think we're sort of still going down that direction. But this week we're going to talk about happiness and how values and making values-based decisions or choices enable us to live a happier and more fulfilled life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, the whole thing with happiness too, I think right now we're seeing so much stuff around how to find happiness, how to create a life that you love. And I think all of it is great, but then sometimes there's this impression, at least when I read it, that it's happiness is this external thing that you have to go and achieve or go and find, which I think is a bit misleading because actually happiness is just within yourself.
Totally.
So it's a constant choice. Today you could wake up and be in a bad mood and you'll have a shitty day, or you could wake up and be in a positive mood and have a great day. So I think it's really about your mindset. And then values, I think, are just a really good foundation to ground a lot of the choices that you're making on a daily basis, right?
Exactly. Just before we really go on, though, can we just, I know, some of you are watching us live, and those of you that, as you come on, just, say hi or, so that we know you're there.
Yeah, then we'll give a little shout out.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have any questions or you want to comment, we're trying to always answer live as best as we can and engage as much as we can. So if you have anything you want to say to us while we're talking, please do, and we'll check it out and respond.
And especially today, because I do feel people have a lot of burning questions around values, but I guess because it's not a topic we talk about usually every day, sometimes we kind of hide away from our questions. But let's see how we go.
Exactly. Okay, what do we mean by better choices, right? So I guess for us, it's really about making sure that the choices that we make are grounded by our personal values. Because so often we make choices based on other people's expectations, based on societal pressure, based on family, based on all these other things. And that pressure takes us away from actually really making the right choices based on who we are, what we believe in, what our principles are, the foundations or the inner core of ourselves. So, values are the beliefs and principles and things that you really find more important to you or most important to you.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, my core values, and I'll list a couple of them because I have quite a few. And look, to be honest, values can change as well over time and in different life stages. And, depending on where you are in our change cycle, that can also impact the types of values that you may find as more important to you. Hi, Daryl. It's great to see you here. So for me, I guess my values is authenticity, freedom, autonomy, community, connection, growth, and meaningful work or purpose. And I think those are really important to me. Obviously, friendship and family and all those sort of things. But these are really what I like to say is the things that are my drivers and my motivators as well through the things that I do. And I'll explain a little bit more what the definitions are for me, but, I think we want to just share a little bit of our own values and then sort of take it from there.
Yeah. So I think, you made a great point. Values definitely change over time. I mean, if you think about, when you were 9 years old, what would have been most important to you versus when you were 18, versus when you were 25, or when you're 35. So, I mean, just on in simple kind of sensibility, like you can imagine why priorities will always evolve. So right now, where I am today, I believe my values are, curiosity, authenticity as well, intellect, and independence, and you had freedom, and I think it values, you can go really, really deep into them if you want to, but even just looking as an example, like what is the difference between independence and freedom? How you might define it and how I might define it might be different, and then what does it look like in action is really the bigger thing. Hi, Bernice. So yeah, you want to define yours first?
Yeah, sure. I think it's something we always say, because we usually in all of our courses we uncover or we talk about values and the importance of values, because that will then change the direction that you go into, as well as help you to look at the challenges or the boundaries or the barriers a little differently. So one thing we always say is that, how do you define your values?
Yeah.
And again, like Saul was sort of sharing earlier, everyone has a different definition of what freedom means or independence means or all of that. So oftentimes when you're thinking about your values, if you're going to go through this activity, is start listing them out and then defining what that means. So for me, as an example, authenticity. That's really about making sure that I am living as authentically as I can to who my true self is at and when at this point, right? So it's that self-awareness, just ensuring that every time I'm doing something, I'm doing it authentically, because it feels right to me. So freedom. Okay, freedom is really like, I guess, I find I need the freedom to do what I want to do. I need the freedom to be able to change when I want to do. I need, in a sense, it's a mixture of independence as well.
Yeah.
Right? I need to be free to explore and to be who I am and to be creative and to go away when I want to. And honestly, sometimes having a child recently doesn't allow you to have much freedom, and you start realizing, how do I now define freedom? And that sort of stuff. So autonomy, I am not good with people telling me what to do. My husband will definitely vouch for this. Anyone wants to tell me what to do, I will tell them no.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's about, making sure that I have, because I am a bit of a control freak.
You?
I am autonomy to me is like, God, I don't know what would happen if I had to work for someone. But anyways, no. Autonomy is just have that, again, it connects with my values of freedom, right? Because I like to make my choices based on decisions or things that I feel right at that time. And I like to, and sometimes it does mean I'm a bit more selfish, perhaps, than I should be. Community for me is essential. I love to do things on my own, and I am sometimes probably better, motivated on my own. However, community for me is like the people, my friends, like people around me that are like-minded, people around me that, have a sense of purpose or meaning in what they're doing. And that, I guess some of you may have heard that you are the average of the 5 people that you are, and that to me is so important, and that really is about like what type of a community do you surround yourself with. But community also means to me, what type of community can I build around things such as transition or change or entrepreneurship or creativity, all of these things. Yep. So that's why community is one of my values, because it's not something that I need also, but it's something that I want to create and build for the ecosystem. Connection, again, that really ties with like building connection to myself. So maybe for some it's spirituality, but for me it's connection in like who I am, what I stand for, what I want, and what I want to do in the grand scheme of things, right? And the connection that I have with my mind, body, and soul. It could be spirituality for others. Growth, that's really just because I feel that you constantly need to be growing in some shape or form, and you also constantly need to be shedding some of who you are. But growing in doesn't have to be a forward motion. It can be a sideways motion and all of that sort of stuff. And then purpose or meaningful work, because I feel that if you don't have purpose, or for me, if I don't have purpose in what I do, I cannot do it authentically, and therefore I'm not living one of my values, which is authenticity. So having purpose is essential, because, and that doesn't mean like, again, we talked about this in one of our episodes, right? It's not like purpose has to be like Mother Teresa,
Yeah.
right? Or for me, it's just, it has to have meaning to me. What is that deeper meaning? And why am I doing it? And then I can feel like I am living and breathing my values. So those are just, I guess, some of my core values at the moment. And, you know, Sol can sort of share a little bit more about how her things, her values are.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I try to keep mine just to a few so that they're easy for me to remember. But yeah, and you know, curiosity for me is really about, to me, that encompasses a lot, right? So traveling, and when I travel, you know, I tend to always try to connect with people, with local people, and really either learn a new terminology or learn something about their culture, or kind of go out exploring in you know, these off the beaten path type experiences that you can have, rather than the sort of, you know, touristy stuff, which I'm sure is true for a lot of people. But for me, you know, I get so much insight and so much to observe and learn from the world when I do those things. And so that's why curiosity, I think, is a huge one for me, and just asking why always. And I know it probably drives my husband and friends crazy, because I'm always wanting to understand, like, why does something happen a certain way, or why do people tend to behave in a certain way. But that really just feeds my spirit. And my intellect, which is also like another one of mine. So for me, it's not that, you know, you need to be some genius or know everything. It's just that desire and that hunger to keep advancing my mind and really challenging the way I think about things, or challenging notions that, you know, we've accepted on a mass level. Why are we accepting those things, and who said it's true? So those are just, you know, that's just an example of what I mean by intellect. Authenticity, very similar to what you said. I guess that one's kind of been built in for me, because I guess, you know, from a young age, and actually just earlier this week, I had a talk on vulnerability where I had to kind of share all this stuff in detail. But, you know, coming from a mixed background, having grown up in so many different places, you know, looking one way but identifying with another thing, I think, you know, being okay with not fitting into certain labels, and being okay with defining myself as I am, or looking as I do, however people, you know, might perceive that, has been a lifelong journey. I mean, it's not been easy. It took me a while to step into myself, and it's still a work in progress, but I think it's so important for us to feel comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah.
And then independence, you know, like, I guess, for better or for worse, definitely a very strong independence streak. And it manifests in so many ways. I mean, it means for me that I want to be financially independent, you know, exclusive of anybody, you know, whether it's family, spouse, whomever, right? It means that while I love working with people and working in teams, you know, I also need that time to work on things myself, because, you know, whether I'm slow or think too much or whatever it is, like, that's just me. And that's the time and space I need to create for myself. So I guess, you know, those are the few I'll share now. And, you know, I think as much as this guides, like, my work, it also guides things like how I choose to spend my time. It also guides whether or not I go out on a Friday night with, you know, some friends, because if I'm not able to, you know, be curious and feel authentic and develop myself in some way, you know, mentally, and feel that, you know, I can be independent, then I'll probably say no. Or, you know, as I get older, I'm being more choosy about where I invest my energy and time, because I have that clarity of my values. So that's
Yeah.
why.
I think, I mean, that just, you know, that's why it's so important for us to always emphasize the value side, because people are so disconnected with themselves. And, you know, like, don't get us wrong, like, we're not perfect by all means.
No
at
way.
all, and I definitely have a lot of things that I could work on. But actually, there's a lot of things that I'm also like, you know what, that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it, and I'm going to own it. And anyone else who doesn't like it, well, then sorry for the moment. You will just not have to fit in my picture, and then see you later.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's also, there's a time and a place for certain things.
Yes.
But if you're able to connect with yourself, and you're able to understand who you are, what you stand for, and why you stand for it, and be strong enough to own that, and be confident enough to own it, then you will have, the courage to do whatever it is that you want to do, which for us is essential. But also, then you will live a happier, daily life because you are walking down the street knowing that that's who you are.
Totally.
Right?
And making your own choices, right? Because I think,
Yeah.
we all have to, we've got busy jobs and we've got different roles, whether you're a mom or, a business owner or whatever it is. And so often we're working on other people's timelines,
Yes.
other people's expectations. And, it adds stress to our lives. And then all this really ties in with your why, which
Yeah.
is what we talked about a few weeks ago. What is your why? Well, it really depends on what your values are, right? And like I said, even with small things, when you wake up, just as a game, just for fun, ask yourself, why am I eating this for breakfast? And why am I eating at 9 a.m.? And why am I rushing to work right now? And just making sure that your answers are yours, and that you believe in it. And I think that inevitably will make you start feeling happier.
Yes, and I mean, we've got a few more people just joining in here. So out of those of you that have just joined in, maybe you could just say hi. And those of you that are here, if you want to just share, do you have any values that you can think of off the top of your head that are important to you? Just write it in the comments box. It's so good to share that with other people and to just be able to be in a space or an environment that allows you to be open about it, right?
Yep, totally.
And there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong. That's why we also say the definition is essential, right?
Yep.
So there's a few of you here watching us live. So if you want to type in the comment box, some values, or that maybe you haven't even thought about what those values are,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
No, that's totally okay. And I think that's a very common one, and probably why a lot of times when we do throw it out there, people are kind of like, and so I think, hi. I think if we can just create more conversation around it and create more comfort around, even not knowing your values, but being interested in exploring it more, then that's a big mission for us done. Just getting the conversation out there.
Absolutely.
So feel free to share if you have any ideas, right?
Yeah. So today, Bernice, okay, integrity and reliability. Great.
Nice.
That's great. Very important ones for, for a lot of people as well. Integrity, that's essential for so many things, right? And if you can define it, what does integrity mean to you, right? And reliability, right? Is it reliability in what way, in what shape, in what form? And why is it important? Why is reliability important, right? Those are some of the things that I would dig deeper in.
Totally. And I think, not that we're not really talking about personal brand right now, but it's definitely something we do talk about as well. And, it's that idea of okay, Bernice, I'm just going to use yours as an example now so I don't have to use my own. But if it's integrity and reliability, then it's okay, how does that show up?
Hi, Suzanne.
Gaining and sharing knowledge. Thanks for that, Suzanne. How does that show up, right? Is it that you're that person who every time you're in a circle with people, you're always pushing for idea sharing, and bringing your experiences forward? Or, if it's reliability, are you that person that everyone knows when you say you do something, you're going to do it? That's awesome. And that makes you you, right? So I think the sooner you can know your values and really resonate with them, and then more importantly, be them and live them, for sure you're going to feel better about your life every day.
And these will help you make those choices, right? So a lot of the times the work that we do, we see a lot of people who are at crossroads. And if they're at these significant roads, right, where the making or the decision making comes down to a lot of things. But the biggest one that helps them is understanding their values, right? Because that gives them, that allows them to make values-based decisions, and then the priorities or needs-based decision.
Yeah.
So that's essential when you're at this significant sort of point in your life. So obviously, all of our changeable episodes, except for last week's, give you something to download.
Yes.
So we have a few things for you to really think about. And that we want to put it out there, and then, go and get our free worksheet that will help you move through this sort of uncovering process a little bit more.
Yep.
So we've got 3 simple questions that we want you to take some time out to have sorry, not sure what happened there.
Okay, we're back.
We have 3 simple questions that we want you to ask yourself, and maybe take some time out for a bit of reflection. If not today, then sometime this week. And feel free to share it with us. You can always email us at hello@thechangeschool.com or share it with us on Facebook. But the 3 questions that, is really based on what you should do, have to do, or what you really want to do.
Yeah.
Right? So the first question is, how do you make choices in your life and work? Or for us, we like to say life work.
Yeah.
And what is your decision-making criteria? So is it based on what you think you should do, have to do, or what you really want to do?
Yeah.
So think about that. So how do you make choices in your life work? And what is your decision-making criteria? I mean, we shared, obviously, some of the ways that we do it, but think about it for yourself.
Yep. Another question to sort of think about is, how do you define your values, like we said earlier, and how is this reflected in the way that you think, in the way that you feel, even in private when you're not sharing, and in your behavior? I think, even if if the idea of like, okay, what are my values is like too daunting, then maybe just take a day to observe yourself and, in different interactions or situations, really think about like, how do you act? What do you tend to say or think, or what do people tend to come to you for? All of those are really good clues as to what your values might be.
Yeah, definitely. So question 3 is, once you sort of looked at your values or even listed your values and defined them, though, is how have your core values changed or evolved through different life stages? And if you have never thought about your values, that's fine. Maybe look back and go, were there any values that perhaps inspired or helped you to make a decision or encouraged you to make a decision that maybe you didn't even know were there? Because sometimes we can have it subconsciously, and it is what's sort of like our driving force, right? So how have your core values changed or evolved through the different life stages? And in your current life stage, what are those, right?
Yeah.
So this is really good to think about because it helps you to recognize that our priorities change and can change at different stages of our life. And that's why so many of us transition from one work or one career to another. And so many things evolve, and there's so many different variables, but our values are really that, that sort of foundation for the next stage of where we're going to or moving to. So think about when you're 18 versus 25 versus 30 versus 40, whatever stage you're at, right? And what are those values?
Yeah, and I think pivotal moments, right, are always a good clue. So, just think back to maybe how you chose a major in school, or, the last time you job hopped or changed careers, why did you do that? What kind of made you want to do that? Or if you moved countries, what was the motivation? I think change, right, and transition is always like a really good clue, again, as to what are the things that are really important to you that maybe you haven't like articulated, but they're already in the back of your mind.
And just to give an example, I was talking to one of our students earlier last week, and, for example, I've always enjoyed, when I was young, I used to, like, have a blackboard and, have this little
teacher.
Yeah, and, like, teach my little sister on our balcony here in Singapore, and I'd have, like, this pencil and this chalk and be telling her what to do and all of this sort of stuff. So my control freak was already there. But my teaching, right? And I never really thought I wanted to be a teacher, or that, hi, Yo Ling Song. So I guess for me it was more, I always had it there, but I didn't know how it would come into fruition, right? So then when I sort of shifted into other roles and all these sort of things, then I started lecturing, and I thought, okay, it's not lecturing or teaching that I enjoy, but it's like sharing or imparting knowledge in some shape or form through experience, blah, 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 whatever, all those sort of things. So if I really look back at the moments in my life and where people have come to me or how I've felt most alive, it's sometimes in those moments, right? And oftentimes think about what your childhood dream was, and see how that resonates, because teaching is not teaching in the definition that everyone assumes it is, right? There's so many things that can be defined under the word teaching.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's about digging a little bit deeper, I think, than just the surface labels or titles that we tend to kind of dwell on sometimes. Okay, so like Grace mentioned, we have a worksheet for this week, and the link is up on the screen if you can see bit.ly Change School TV06 download. And it's a super simple one. It just gives a couple examples of how you can start living your values, making choices that are grounded in your values in order to be and feel happier. And then we've thrown up our Change Planner link once again. I know we went on about it last week, but the reason we wanted to bring it up again is because really that was the impetus for us to design it, right? Is that, if happiness comes down to your choices, and if we all kind of know somewhere in the back of our minds what we want our lives to look like, then it just comes down to sort of reverse engineering, a little bit of forward planning, a lot of honest self-reflection, and then incrementally creating these habits and, like we were saying last week, rituals, right? That you can own, that are important to you, and that reflect what you really want from everyday life.
Exactly. So head on, get your Hack Your Happiness worksheet.
Yes.
And then get yourself on the early interest page for our Change Planner, because once we announce it, we do only have a certain number of units, right?
Yeah.
So just put yourself on the wait list. We will let you know as soon as it's up and running. And then next week we're going to be back Tuesday, 12:30. We won't be late. It'll be Tuesday, 12:30, and we're going to be talking about tips on
reinventing you.
Yes.
Perfect. You can.
So feel free to send us emails, comments, suggestions, and if there's any topic that you want us to cover that works under the space of change, let us know.
Yes.
Because we're sort of mapping out the rest of the Change School TV episodes. So
and it's always changing.
Exactly. You never know what you're going to get. Thanks so much for watching us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.